When Laura told me she had planned a surprise getaway for the two of us, I thought it was the most thoughtful thing she'd done in years. For months, we had been orbiting around each other like distant planets. Her work trips stretching longer, my nights filled with keeping the house running and our kids fed. So when she came into the kitchen that Thursday morning with a glimmer in her eyes and said, "Pack a bag, just you and me this weekend," I almost didn't believe her. It felt like a gift, a chance to remember who we used to be before schedules and deadlines suffocated everything soft between us. She didn't tell me where we were going, only that it was a romantic escape and that she had handled everything. No work, no distractions, she promised, brushing my hand with hers like the old days. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe this was her way of stitching us back together. But somewhere behind the excitement, a small knot of unease tugged at me. Laura had never been one for surprises.
Friday evening arrived, and we left the kids with my sister. Laura insisted she'd already arranged everything: the cabin, the route, even a playlist for the drive. I couldn't help but smile at her enthusiasm. It felt almost rehearsed, like a performance. Still, I wanted to believe this was real. As we drove north, she talked more than usual, pointing out little towns, laughing at old memories, even reaching for my hand between songs. For a moment, it felt like the Laura I had fallen in love with 15 years ago. But as the miles stretched on, small cracks appeared. She checked her phone constantly, turning the screen slightly away from me each time. Once, when she thought I was asleep, I saw her type a message quickly, her lips curling into the faintest smile. Not the smile she gave me. We pulled up to a picturesque inn by the lake. White shutters, ivy climbing the walls, lanterns glowing in the dusk. "Perfect, right?" she said, her eyes shining. And yet, beneath the beauty of it all, I felt a shadow pressing in.
The innkeeper greeted us warmly, handing over a brass key and 2 complimentary glasses of wine. Laura accepted both with a laugh that seemed almost too bright. We carried our bags upstairs, the old wooden floor creaking under every step, until we reached a cozy room with a balcony overlooking the lake. I set my bag down and took a deep breath. The place was beautiful, charming in that rustic storybook way. Laura kissed me lightly on the cheek and said, "I booked us dinner at the restaurant downstairs. They have amazing seafood." She slipped into the bathroom to freshen up. While she was gone, her phone buzzed on the nightstand. The screen lit up with a single message: "Can't wait to see you. Don't keep me waiting." My chest tightened. The name wasn't saved, just a number. I stared at the message, torn between anger and disbelief. My first instinct was to grab the phone, scroll, find the truth. But just as my hand moved closer, the bathroom door clicked open. Laura stepped out, smiling, her hair brushed and lips shining. "Ready for dinner?" she asked. I forced a smile back, though my world had already tilted. The restaurant glowed with candlelight, couples leaning close over wine glasses, the hum of quiet conversations blending with the sound of silverware. Laura looked radiant, almost too radiant, her laughter filling the room like she was playing a part. She ordered the most expensive bottle of wine without even glancing at me, something she never did. I tried to focus on the meal, the grilled salmon, the scent of herbs, the way her hand rested on the stem of her glass. But my mind kept circling back to that message: "Don't keep me waiting." Who is waiting and where? At one point, Laura excused herself to take a call. She stepped outside, onto the patio, her back to the dining room, phone pressed tightly to her ear. Through the glass, I watched her expression soften into something I hadn't seen in months. She smiled, nodded, touched her hair. When she returned, she brushed it off casually. "Just work," she said, waving her hand as if that explained everything. I wanted to believe her, I truly did, but the words on that screen burned into my memory. This wasn't work. This was something else, something darker. After dinner, we walked back upstairs, the night air cool and sharp, the lake reflecting the moon in broken silver pieces. Laura looped her arm through mine, humming softly, as if nothing in the world weighed on her. Inside the room, she poured herself another glass of wine and started talking about how she had discovered this inn. "A colleague told me about it," she said, curling up on the bed. She said it was the perfect place for couples to reconnect. Something in her tone snagged me. She? I asked. Laura hesitated, just long enough for me to notice. Yeah, well, one of the consultants on my team. You don't know her. She sipped quickly, avoiding my eyes. But I remembered the email signature from one of her late-night presentations, a he, not a she. My mind replayed the message from earlier. Don't keep me waiting. I smiled faintly, pretending to accept her explanation, though doubt curled in my stomach like smoke. Later, when she finally drifted off to sleep, I lay awake listening to the sound of her breathing, wondering if the woman beside me was still my wife, or just someone playing a role in a story I hadn't been told. Morning light spilled across the wooden floorboards, soft and golden, but it only made the unease in my chest sharper. Laura was still asleep, her phone on the nightstand beside her. I reached for it once, twice, then pulled my hand back as though the device might burn me. Instead, I slipped quietly onto the balcony, trying to shake the restless thoughts. Below, by the parking lot, I noticed a car I didn't recognize, a sleek black sedan with out-of-state plates. It hadn't been there the night before. When Laura finally stirred, she seemed strangely rushed. "Let's go into town," she said, already halfway dressed. "There's a cute market you'll love." At the cafe near the square, she excused herself to make a quick call. I waited, stirring coffee that had gone cold, until curiosity chewed a hole through my patience. I stepped outside just far enough to see her. Across the street, phone pressed to her ear, speaking fast, her free hand cutting the air in sharp gestures. When she noticed me watching, her face snapped into a smile that looked painted on. "Work crisis," she said breezily when she returned. But I'd heard enough of her tone to know that wasn't work. That was intimacy. That evening, after strolling through town and pretending to enjoy the market, Laura said she wanted to check out the spa downstairs. She urged me to relax in the room, maybe watch a movie, order a drink. The moment the door closed behind her, something inside me snapped. I waited 5 minutes, then slipped out quietly and followed the hallway toward the spa. But she wasn't there. The reception desk was dark, no voices, no movement. I circled back through the lobby, trying not to look suspicious. That's when I saw her, through the glass front doors of the inn, stepping quickly into the black sedan I'd noticed earlier. She glanced over her shoulder once, then disappeared inside. The car pulled away without hesitation. I stood frozen, my heart thudding so loud it drowned out the clinking glasses from the bar. Every instinct screamed at me to run after them, demand answers, tear open the truth. But I didn't. Instead, I sank into a chair in the corner of the lobby, staring at the door long after it closed. When Laura returned nearly 2 hours later, cheeks flushed, hair slightly undone, she carried a shopping bag with a candle inside. "Souvenir," she said lightly. "Did you miss me?" I forced a smile that tasted like iron. Laura showered before bed, humming softly behind the door, steam curling from the cracks. While she was distracted, I opened her purse. My hands shook, not from guilt, but from the certainty that I'd find something. Inside were the usual things: wallet, receipts, makeup, but tucked in the side pocket was a folded piece of paper, creased from being opened and closed too many times. I smoothed it out on the bedspread. A handwritten note, just a few words. "Can't wait to finally have you to myself." No name, no date. I shoved it back into her bag just as the water stopped. My pulse hammered in my ears as Laura stepped out, towel wrapped around her, smiling faintly. "Your turn," she said, slipping beneath the sheets. I nodded, heading into the bathroom, gripping the sink until my knuckles whitened. In the mirror, my reflection stared back at me, jaw tight, eyes hollow, the face of a man who knew his life was cracking apart. That night, I lay awake beside her, every breath she took sounding like a lie whispered in the dark. Over breakfast the next morning, I decided to test her.
The inn's dining hall buzzed with quiet chatter, the smell of coffee thick in the air. Laura sat across from me, scrolling her phone while pretending to listen. "So," I said lightly, "what did you get up to last night? The spa must have been really relaxing." Her eyes flicked up just for a moment, then back to her phone. "Yeah, it was nice. Long lines, though." She buttered her toast too quickly, as if to distract me. "Strange," I pressed, sipping my coffee. "I went by there to see you, but it was completely closed." Her hand froze, knife midair. For a heartbeat, silence pressed between us. Then she laughed, a sound too sharp, too rehearsed. "Maybe you went to the wrong floor. You know how confusing these old inns are." I smiled back, but inside, I was screaming. Every word out of her mouth was a carefully crafted lie, a wall she was building brick by brick. By midday, Laura suggested we split up for a while. She wanted to browse the antique shops in town, she said, while I might enjoy the lakeside trail. Her tone was casual, but her eyes voided mine. I agreed, masking my suspicion with a smile. The moment she walked away, I followed at a distance, keeping my steps light, my gaze hidden behind sunglasses. She moved quickly, almost too quickly, weaving through side streets until she stopped in front of a small cafe on the edge of town. Through the window, I saw him, the man from the black sedan. Tall, well-dressed, early 40s, the kind of presence that filled a room. Laura slipped inside, her entire face changing the moment she saw him. She leaned across the table, touching his hand, her smile soft and private in a way I hadn't seen in years. I stood outside in the cold air, the glass between us like a cruel screen. Every laugh, every glance, every brush of her fingers across his arm, each one was a knife sliding deeper. There was no denying it now. The romantic trip, the carefully planned getaway, none of it was for me. I was just the cover story. I didn't storm into the cafe. I didn't confront them, didn't shatter the glass and demand answers. Instead, I turned away, heart pounding, and walked back toward the inn with the weight of truth pressing down on me. When Laura returned an hour later, her cheeks flushed, shopping bag in hand, she acted as though nothing had happened. "I found some old books I thought you'd like," she said brightly, placing the bag on the bed. Her performance was flawless, almost. I studied her every movement, the way she avoided direct eye contact, the faint smell of cologne on her clothes, not hers, not mine. I asked nothing, said nothing, just nodded, thanked her for the books, and forced a smile. The silence between us grew heavy, a silent battlefield where I held all the cards but refused to play them. She laughed too much that evening, poured too much wine, touched my hand as if rehearsing intimacy. And all the while, I watched, a man sitting across from his wife, pretending not to know that the love of his life had already left him for someone else. That night, when Laura's breathing settled into the steady rhythm of sleep, I lay awake staring at the ceiling. The weight of silence was unbearable. Finally, I reached for her phone, careful not to wake her. My hands trembled as I unlocked it with her thumb pressed gently against the sensor. The screen lit up like a confession. Message after message scrolled before me. Late-night plans, whispered promises, words drenched in intimacy. "Counting the hours until I see you again. Wish you were in my bed right now instead of his." My chest tightened with every line, bile rising in my throat. They were photos too. Smiling selfies at airports, blurry hotel room shots, a champagne glass raised to toast, and always the same man's face beside hers. I set the phone down, my pulse hammering so hard I thought it might shake the bed. For a long moment, I just watched her sleep, wondering how she could look so peaceful while my world fell apart beside her. In that instant, I knew. This wasn't a mistake, a fling, a lapse in judgment. This was a life she had built, carefully hidden behind the mask of a romantic surprise.
Morning came with a pale light bleeding through the curtains. I sat at the small desk in the corner, staring out at the lake, unable to sleep after what I'd seen on her phone. Laura stirred, stretching, her voice soft. "You're up early." I turned to her, keeping my expression neutral. "Couldn't sleep." She smiled faintly, coming closer. "Too much wine last night?" "Maybe," I said, my voice flat. Then, after a pause, I added, "Funny how much you've been on your phone lately. Must be exhausting, keeping up with all those conversations." Her smile faltered, just for a second. Then she laughed, too lightly, too rehearsed. "Work never ends, you know that?" She leaned down and kissed my cheek, quick, distracted. I studied her face, searching for any trace of guilt. She was a master of masks, I realized. Every gesture, every word, chosen like an actress on stage. "Laura," I said quietly, "what exactly is this trip supposed to be?" She froze, her back to me as she pretended to fuss with her suitcase. "A getaway," she said, finally, voice tight. "A chance for us." But I had seen the truth written in her messages. This trip was never for us. It was for him.
We spent the morning wandering the town, though my mind wasn't on the cobblestone streets or the antique shops. Every step felt like walking through fog, my anger simmering beneath the surface. At lunch, over a table by the window, I leaned forward. "So," I began, my tone casual, "who's the guy with the black sedan? The one I've seen parked outside the inn?" Laura's fork froze halfway to her mouth. For the briefest moment, her eyes betrayed panic. Then she forced a laugh. "You and your imagination. Probably just another guest." "Right," I said, watching her closely. "Funny, though. I thought I saw you get into his car the other night." Her smile cracked, faltering under the weight of my words. She reached for her wine glass, sipping too quickly, avoiding my gaze. "Mike, you're being paranoid." I leaned back, studying her. "Am I?" The silence that followed stretched thin, filled with the clatter of dishes and muted conversations around us. She busied herself with her plate, but her hands trembled just enough for me to see. In that moment, I knew she understood. The act was falling apart, and I was no longer playing along.
That evening, back in the room, I couldn't keep the words caged any longer. Laura stood at the mirror, removing her earrings, when I said quietly, "I know." She froze, her hands hovering midair. "Know what?" I rose from the chair, my voice low but steady. "About the messages, about him, about this whole trip being nothing more than a cover." Her eyes snapped to mine in the mirror, wide and blazing with fear. "You went through my phone?" she demanded, spinning around. "I went through my life," I shot back, the anger finally breaking free. "And I found it wasn't mine anymore. You've been giving it away, piece by piece, to someone else." For a long moment, she said nothing. The air in the room thickened, heavy with everything unspoken. Then her shoulders slumped, and the fight drained out of her. "It wasn't supposed to go this far," she whispered. "I just needed something different, something that wasn't us." Her confession landed like a blow. I stared at the woman I had built a life with, realizing she wasn't mine anymore. Maybe she hadn't been for a long time. Her words echoed in the silence of that small inn-room. Something different. As if our marriage, our years together, our children were just a phase she had grown bored of. I stepped closer, my voice low and shaking, not with fear, but with fury barely held in check. "Do you even realize what you've done? This isn't just about you and me. Curtis and Sophie. What happens when they find out their mother traded her family for something different?" Laura's eyes filled with tears, but I couldn't tell if it was regret or simply fear of being caught. "Please, don't bring the kids into this," she whispered. "They're already in it. Every lie you told me, you told them too. Every late night call, every trip you said was for work, it was all time stolen from them, from us." She covered her face with her hands, sinking onto the edge of the bed. For the first time, she looked small, fragile, stripped of her carefully rehearsed act. I wanted to scream, to shake her, to make her see the destruction she had caused.
but instead I stood there in the suffocating quiet, realizing there might be no apology deep enough to mend what she had shattered.
I began packing my bag in silence. The sound of the zipper cutting through the room was louder than any argument we could have had. Laura looked up, startled. "What are you doing?" "I'm leaving," I said simply. "This trip was never for us. It was for him, and I won't sit here pretending otherwise." She shot to her feet, panic flashing across her face. "You can't just walk out. What about the kids? What about our marriage?" I stopped, meeting her eyes. "Our marriage? You ended that the moment you stepped into his car. As for the kids, they still have one parent who won't lie to them." Her lip trembled. For a brief second, I saw the woman I had once trusted, once loved. "Please, Mike, don't do this. We can fix it." I shook my head, the weight of finality settling on my shoulders. "You broke it, and some things don't get fixed." With that, I closed my suitcase and walked out the door, her voice following me down the hall, desperate and breaking, but powerless to stop me. The drive home felt endless. The highway stretched ahead in gray ribbons, each mile marker pulling me farther from the lies I'd uncovered and closer to the truth I dreaded sharing. The passenger seat was empty, but Laura's ghost lingered there, her laughter from the night before echoing in my head like a cruel recording. I replayed every moment. The cafe window, the messages on her phone, the smell of cologne on her clothes, proof stacked upon proof, heavy as stone. I thought of Curtis, 15, and too perceptive for his own good. He'd already sensed the distance, the silences, the late-night phone calls. And Sophie, my 10-year-old, who still drew pictures of Mommy and Daddy holding hands. How was I supposed to tell them that the family in her drawings no longer existed? At a gas station stop, I caught my reflection in the grimy bathroom mirror. I looked like a man hollowed out, carrying the weight of a betrayal that would crush not only me, but the two people who mattered most. By the time I pulled into our driveway, I knew one thing for certain. I couldn't protect them from the truth forever, but I had to find a way to soften the blow before the truth destroyed them too. Curtis was waiting for me when I walked in, slouched on the couch with his headphones around his neck. He didn't even look surprised that I came home alone. "Where's Mom?" he asked flatly. I hesitated, setting my bag down. His eyes, so much older than his years, locked onto mine. He already knew. Kids always know. "She's... stand behind," I said carefully. Curtis scoffed. "With him, right?" The air left my lungs. "What do you mean?" He leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. "Dad, I'm not a kid anymore. I've seen the late-night texts, the way she hides her phone. You think I didn't notice? She's been cheating, hasn't she?" The bluntness of the word hit me harder than any punch. I swallowed, forcing myself not to look away. "Yes," I admitted quietly, "she has." Curtis didn't cry, he didn't yell. He just nodded slowly, as though confirming a truth he'd carried for months. "I figured," he said. Then, after a pause, "Don't tell Sophie, not yet. She still thinks Mom's perfect." I sat beside him, my chest aching with both pride and sorrow. "I won't," I promised. "But one day, she'll need to know."
Later that night, Sophie padded into my room in her pajamas, clutching her stuffed bunny. Her big eyes blinked up at me. "Daddy, why didn't Mommy come home with you?" The question split me open. I pulled her onto my lap, smoothing her hair back as I searched for words gentle enough to carry the weight of the truth. "Mommy has some work she needs to finish," I said softly. "But I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere." She studied me with the unfiltered honesty only a child can give. "Are you sad?" My throat tightened. "Yeah, sweetheart, I am. But it's not your fault. None of this is your fault." She wrapped her little arms around my neck, her voice muffled against my shirt. "It's okay, Daddy. I'll take care of you."
In that moment, I felt something shift inside me. Laura had betrayed me, shattered the life we built. But sitting there with Sophie's arms around me and Curtis's quiet strength still echoing in my mind, I realized I hadn't lost everything. I still had them. And with them, I still had a future worth fighting for.